Now I'll talk about the general movement of the game. One thing to note right away is that for most levels, you should be holding run in the direction that you'll be moving in before the level fully loads. You can see here that you can actually start moving a little bit before Mario becomes visible as the level fades in. You can see that Mario was already moving there when the level started. And for most levels, this is going to be the case. Now I'll talk about the different types of jumps that you need to learn. The first thing to point out is that, unlike lots of Mario games and other platformers, holding run in the direction that you want to go is actually not the fastest way to move in this game. So if you watch videos of the top times, you'll notice that people are almost never just running. The main type of movement is twirl jumping, since this is the fastest method of covering ground. And just as kind of a warning, I know that a lot of the twirl jump stuff is confusing if you're just starting out, but twirl jumps are just the best, so it's useful to learn. And though they seem complicated at first, you'll be doing them all the time, so it doesn't take that long to get used to it. The other types of jumps will be simpler, so just bear with me for a bit. To do a twirl jump, you hold the run button in the direction that you're going. Then you crouch, then you hit run again, and then jump. It sounds complicated, and it's kind of a weird hand movement, but once you get the hang of it, it's super simple. Also note that the Y button and the X button are the same. They're both the run button. It doesn't matter which one you use. And similarly, A and B are the same. They're both the jump button. And you can also use either L or R for crouching. So there are different buttons that you can use to get the same result, and you just need to find the setup that works for you. How I do twirl jumps is I hold Y the whole time, then I use R to crouch, then I slide my thumb over from Y to X. Well, not from Y to X because I keep holding Y. So I hold Y the whole time, crouch, X, jump. And I use A for jump, but you might use B. And when you do it this way, actually my thumb is pressing 3 buttons at the same time, briefly, and I never release run. And then if I'm chaining twirl jumps together, I keep holding Y while releasing X and A, and then pushing X and A again. And you can either continue to hold crouch the whole time, or you can release crouch and re-grab crouch, which is actually what I do. If you do it quickly enough, it doesn't make any difference, it's just whichever one works. I know that some people continue to hold crouch the whole time, but whatever method works for you. You could also do twirl jumps with just the one button for the run and the one button for jump. Then you would crouch and release the run button very briefly, and then re-grab the run button and then hit the jump button. So you could do it this way if it works for you, but I think there's actually an advantage of doing it with multiple buttons the way that I do it. One of the advantages is that the A button is only used for twirl jumps, and then the B button is used for the other jumps. But if you do it the other way, where you use Y and B only, or X and A only if that's the way you do it, then you're using the same jump button for both twirl jumps and long jumps. And this makes it much more likely that you'll long jump when you want to twirl jump, or vice versa. Or at least that's been my experience if I try to do it that way. You might like to do it a different way. Also, some people use L instead of R, but to my mind it makes more sense to use R, because then your right hand is only involved in the inputs for jumping and twirling, and your left hand is only involved in steering the direction that you're going. So it keeps a simpler division of labor. And then the other method to talk about is, if you'll notice here, I do a kind of an extended twirl jump. I do a crouch twirl into a twirl jump. And this is for when you want to cover distance that's longer than a single twirl jump, but you don't have enough room to do 2 twirl jumps. And you can also do it just to have a twirl jump off a ledge that covers more ground. Like for example in 1-1, after you grab the second star medal, you actually want to do a crouch twirl into a twirl jump off of the ledge rather than just a twirl jump. So for this jump, you want to start to do a twirl jump, but then you release and then re-grab the run button quickly before jumping. So the buttons that I use is holding Y in the direction, and then I hit and hold R, and then I hit X, and then I actually release X for a few frames, and then hit it again, and then finally hit A to do the jump. This is the method that works for me. And if you did it right, you can actually hear Mario, he'll say, you know, woohoo or ha-ha, which he doesn't say if you're doing a normal twirl jump like that. And this jump can be a little bit weird to get down, but again, it's helpful in the long run to get it down. And I kind of do a weird hand movement where I do like a little wrist pump between the first and second time that I hit X, and this just helps me get the right timing down. Yeah, I died there. And also the difference between doing a twirl jump and then just running to cover the extra ground versus doing the crouch twirl into it, it's going to be extremely minor. I've timed it, and it's a very slight difference between the two methods. So it's not critical that you learn the crouch twirl into the twirl jump. It's not super important, although it is faster than just running and then twirl jumping. And then also, if you're ever unlucky enough to not have the leaf, you'll notice that the twirl jump is just the same as this roll jump that Mario does. It's the exact same inputs. The other method that you could do is, let me get my leaf back here. You could do the twirl jump and then do the crouch twirl at the end to cover the ground, and that'll be faster than just twirl jumping and then running. Again, it's a very slight difference, but it is a little bit of a difference. The other thing you could do is you could do a twirl jump, and then before you land, you actually release Y, which causes Mario, you can see his animation is sped up a little bit. He'll actually take a few hyperspeed steps if you do it that way, which as far as I can tell is pretty much exactly the same as doing a twirl jump into a crouch twirl. So it's faster than just doing this, and you can actually see the animation is a little bit different when he takes the hyperspeed steps compared to just the normal run steps. So the normal run is a little bit slower compared to the hyperspeed, but it's not a huge deal. And so far as I can tell, the hyperspeed versus the crouch twirl, it's pretty much exactly the same, or maybe a frame different. I've tried filming it and going frame by frame, and it's essentially the same. The advantage to doing it the hyperspeed way is that you can change directions more quickly, whereas if you try to change directions with a crouch twirl, it's not as easy. So that's one advantage to doing the hyperspeed way. The other thing is, if you're covering a patch of ground where it's too short to fit in either a long jump or a twirl jump, you can, while you're running, do like a little crouch twirl, and that actually is a little bit faster than just continuing to run. Again, it's a very slight difference. Also, you can't really do the crouch twirls too closely together, because then he just kind of starts to spin in a circle like that. But if you're going to be running, you can go ahead and add in a little crouch twirl. It'll make it go a little bit more quickly. So the other major type of jump is the long jump. And this is much simpler than a twirl jump, but it is also a little bit slower. But it is still considerably faster than running. So the difference between twirl jumping and long jumping is pretty slight. But the difference between either and running is much greater. I mean, you can just tell that he's moving faster when he's either twirl jumping or long jumping. They're both faster than just running. The other thing is that you can do a flutter out of a long jump, and a lot of times you'll be using this to, cover gaps to do skips. But fluttering out of a long jump is a little bit slower than just long jumping. So you don't want to be doing that on flat ground. You only use it to cover gaps. Also, twirl jumping, when you do it into an enemy like that, you'll kill it, whereas if I had tried to long jump, I would have taken damage. So to do a long jump, it's very simple. While holding the run button, just crouch and jump. That's it. You can do it either R or L, B or A, whichever one works for you. If you hold crouch for too long, you'll see he'll start to slow down a little bit before he jumps, and then he won't jump as far. So you want to crouch, and then pretty much immediately after you crouch, or like one frame later, jump. And it's super simple. If you're chaining together long jumps, you can either release crouch and hit it again, which is what I do, or you can hold crouch the whole time and just jump. But really, you shouldn't be doing much of that, because if you're covering a ground that could be covered by two long jumps, it would be faster to do some kind of twirl jump variation. But if you're on like a narrow ledge or you're uncertain of the angle that you took, it might make sense to do long jumps because they're easier to make adjustments, or you can flutter out of them. So a twirl jump is a lot more of a commitment. Let me get my leaves back here. So the difference between a twirl jump and a long jump is not very great, but the difference between either and just running is it makes it the case where you're almost never just running. There's also a side flip that you do and a back flip, but these are very rarely used in a speed run. For the side flip, you're running in a direction, then you hit back and jump quickly, and then he does a little side jump like that. To do a back flip, you just crouch for a second, and he kind of builds up a little charge, and then you hit jump, and he does a back flip. More important is just the regular jump, your standard jump. Like most Mario games, the longer that you hold jump, the higher Mario jumps. And then you can also just continue to hold jump to flutter when you have the Tanuki leaf. The other thing is, if you're jumping with a regular jump, you get a certain height. But if you crouch twirl into the jump, you actually get a little bit more height. Some people call this a boost jump. And also, if you're going to be running into a jump, if you do a little twirl, not just a twirl, but a crouching twirl, then you'll be moving at the crouch twirl speed for a little bit compared to moving at the running speed, which is a little bit faster to do it that way. So you get a little bit of an extra height to your regular jump if you do a crouch twirl into it. This is noticeable, for instance, in 6-4 when you're jumping for the first star medal. A regular jump won't get you up there even if you're running at full speed, but a jump that is coming off of a twirl will get you up there. And also, if you do a normal twirl jump into a regular jump, you get a little bit higher of a jump. You get the crouch twirl boost, and that's also another way that you can do 6-4, for instance. So for the inputs, if you're holding run in a direction, you then hit crouch, then run, then jump again. And it sounds kind of similar to a twirl jump, but the difference is that you release run before you push jump. So you're pushing the jump button a little bit later when you're doing the crouch twirl into a regular jump, compared to pushing the jump button immediately when you do the twirl jump. So the buttons I use are, I hold Y in the direction, and then I hit R to crouch, X to twirl, and then B to jump. And the reason that I do you could use the A button to jump, but if you remember the way I do it, at least, I use the A for the twirl jump. So when I was first learning the boost jump, I was using A, but I was much more likely to accidentally twirl jump when I used A. So I switched to using B for the boost jump. And then that also takes a little bit of time to move your thumb from X to B compared to moving it X to A. So it makes it less likely that you'll do a twirl jump on accident. And the advantage of doing this is that I use A, the only time I use A is when I'm doing a twirl jump. And I use B for all the other jumps, the long jump, regular jump, boost jump, wall jump, side flip, back flip. So for me, that makes the most sense, and it makes it less likely that I'll do the wrong kind of jump, to reserve A for only the twirl jumps. Also, you don't necessarily have to wait for Mario to complete a full rotation before you do the jump. He'll go in the direction regardless of where he's facing when you actually do the crouch twirl, and that also applies for the twirl jump. Wall jumping. So to do a wall jump, let me get over here. Basically what you do is you just hold the direction into the wall, jump into the wall, and then hit the jump button, and then you'll do a wall jump. One thing is, if you do the wall jump quickly, you'll see that this is the best wall to do it on. If you don't do it quickly, he'll start to slide, See Mario start to slide, and you can see the cloud, the dust cloud as he goes down. But if you do the jump immediately, he doesn't actually do that. And this does make a difference, both in that it's quicker if you immediately hit the jump as you hit the wall. Maybe this other wall will be better. See there, he didn't start to slide down at all. And here he slides. So this will make a difference. For instance, let me exit the level so I don't die. In 6-4, when you're going for the second star medal, if you do the optimal wall jumps, you can actually make it in 2 wall jumps. Whereas if you do the non-optimal where you start to slide down, you have to do another wall jump, which is obviously slower. And then, for instance, in 2-1, you have to do like 4 successive wall jumps. And if you're doing them all as you hit the wall compared to sliding down, it makes it much faster. If there are 2 walls close together, you can continually wall jump back and forth to gain height. If they're perpendicular like this, you can continue to gain height. But one thing to note is that if you're just going against the same wall repeatedly, let me actually move over here to this wall. So if I do a wall jump that doesn't get me up on top here, then no matter how many wall jumps I keep doing against a flat wall like this, I'll never be able to get up on top of that. However, sometimes it's useful to maintain your height. Like for example in 7-5, if you mess up the skip there, then you might have to do this while your moving platform catches up to you. So you can keep doing this indefinitely, but you'll never gain enough height to surmount the top of the wall if you're just wall jumping against one of the walls like that. The one other type of jump which is really stupid is the backwards long jump, which is strictly for adding unnecessary swag to your runs, which is something that I never do. There's no speedrunning reason to ever do a backwards long jump compared to a long jump. It's only ever potentially slower and never faster. But some people like to do it. So what you do is you're running in a direction, then you jump and turn around. This might actually take me a few tries because I never do it. So you run, face the other direction. Okay. Yeah, like I said, I never do this. Well, what you do is you run in the direction, jump, turn around, and pretty much as soon as you land, you long jump while holding the joystick in the direction that you're facing, not the direction that you're moving. There we go. And then you can continue chaining together for as long as you want. But again, there's no reason to do it. It's just to make it look cool or to try to emulate Super Mario 64 runners. So yeah, those are the different types of jumps that you need to know. And as we get into the different strategies for individual levels, we'll kind of go into more details and you'll see them in action. But those are the basic types of movements that you'll need for the game.